Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Blanco, the superintendent of the Pasadena Unified School District, which encompasses the city of Pasadena, the town of Altadena, and the city of Sierra Madre. I'm here today with my board president, Jennifer Hawley, in the audience. I'm honored to be here today for this strong partnership that will serve our students and community after the most devastating event in the history of our school district. On behalf of our principal, Ms. Brambulia, who could not be here today, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the wonderful Willard Elementary School, an international baccalaureate school, where the staff and community treat each other as extended family. Today is day 16 since the devastating Eden Fire began. And today we were able to welcome back 3,400 students in the first phase of our reopening since the schools closed because of this fire. The leaders of the cities and the Pasadena Unified School District have worked tirelessly together, and all students will return to school by January 30th, if not earlier. This has been a time of grief and gratitude. We grieve for all of our students and the families and staff that have lost their homes and were displaced. More than 10,000 of our students were in the evacuation zone, and so were nearly half of our employees, about 1,400 employees. Ours is a strong community that is holding each other up, and I want to thank our teachers, our support staff, our administrators who showed up today. They showed up even if they lost their homes, if they were housing others, and if they were far out of the cities that surround us. And they will continue to show up for our students. I have so much gratitude for the response of our essential workers, our local and state officials who have wrapped their arms around the Pasadena Unified School District. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Pastor King.
There's a blessing in this house for you. There's a blessing in this house for you. Even though you can't see it, God knows you need it. Believe me when I tell you, there's a blessing in this house for you. My name is Pastor B.J. King. I'm the senior pastor of Loveland Life Center, the Church of Altadena. I just came because I wanted everyone to see that we're together, that we're moving together, we're working together. But here's the thing that I want you to know. I want you to know about Marlis Gordon. I want you to know about Tina and her husband, Mikko, who fought the fires all night long to save their house, and now they don't even know how to return because it's the only house left standing. I want you to know about Beverly and Wynn, beautiful couple who unfortunately died 2 weeks before this, and then the mortuary was on fire, and people were outside screaming, hoping that it wouldn't burn down. The reason that I give you these names, the Sage family, all of them lost 4 homes and 3 businesses because we very easily will count the structures and forget that each structure represents a family. Altadena is a city of generations and generations. Most people that live in Altadena's houses got passed down from grandma to so on and so forth. Beautiful, beautiful people who are on the ground. Sunday, we got out and just jumped out and started praying for our troops and our first responders because they're going through this too. So it's important that you realize that a lot of us have just taken the initiative to be boots on the ground every single day because we're experiencing something we've never experienced before. It's hard to combat something that you've never fought before, but I know a mighty God. And so we serve, and we are just elated to be here every day. I feel guilty putting on a suit today because there's so many of my friends who's lost their homes, who's lost their churches, who's lost their businesses. We feel guilty shaving, because there's some people that don't have it. So I wanted to come and make sure that the governor's office, who is very, very gracious, and they're working very, very hard. I've been in closed-door meetings that most people would never know about. And some of the stuff that was talked about in those meetings were on the news in the morning, passed as legislation. So we want everybody to know that we're stronger together. We get better together. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Speaker Rivas. God bless you.
And thank you, Pastor, for those words and to help put things into perspective for all of us. Last week, my colleagues and I, John Harbedian, who represents this region, who's here, we made a commitment to act quickly, to act urgently, to help those affected by these catastrophic wildfires. And now we're here this afternoon. We're delivering on that commitment. Urgent action. $2.5 billion to help the people of LA immediately. This critical funding will expedite the cleanup of devastated neighborhoods like nearby Altadena, where so many of our communities of color have been, they're displaced. In Palisades, thousands of people have lost their homes, lost their livelihoods. And this funding also accelerates planning to rebuild LA schools, and speeds up inspections and permitting to help rebuild homes. I want to thank our governor for his leadership. I want to thank the pro tem, Mike McGuire, all of our colleagues in the legislature, our fellow lawmakers, especially from Los Angeles, for moving quickly to get things done for LA. Last week, we spent time here on the front lines in fire-wrecked areas. And there are no words to describe the devastation and the loss. We're grateful to all the firefighters, emergency responders who put their lives on the line. I'm also inspired and absolutely moved by the response from Angelenos. So many people across our state, people who have opened up their homes, who have volunteered and continue to volunteer, who have come together to help. And in that same spirit, I want to point out this morning when we passed this important bill, we passed it with very strong bipartisan support. Bipartisan support for a recovery package that, I think everyone in our legislature understands the urgency of this moment. And I hope that the federal government understands that urgency as well. This is not the time for politics and some political games and finger pointing. We need to come together to rebuild this great American city. And I urge President Trump to provide federal dollars quickly, without conditions. This funding is an important first step for LA. I know that we will be here. We will keep working. We will keep listening to the people of Los Angeles to make sure that they have what they need to recover and rebuild. And with that, I want to invite up here the pro tem of the Senate, Mike McGuire.
Thank you so much, Speaker Rivas. And I want to take a moment to be able to acknowledge Speaker Rivas for his leadership in this absolutely critical time, and to all the Assembly members who are here today. It is humbling to be with you today, and I'm grateful to be with neighbors. Pastor, thank you for the words. To our first responders, the members of the Assembly and the Senate, we have Senator Allen, Senator Perez, whose districts have been devastated, Senator Durazo, Senator Gonzalez, Senator Richardson, Senator Rubio, Senator Small-Cuevas, Senator Wiener, Senator Archuleta, and Senator Menjivar. And of course, to our governor, who has been delivering 24/7 from the very first night of this fire. And we owe him a debt of gratitude. These fires, and I don't mean to get emotional, These fires are nothing short of devastating. Our hearts are with all Angelenos. I've experienced horrific fires in the Northern California district that I proudly represent, losing thousands upon thousands of homes over the past many years. And I know right now for so many across LA are overwhelmed. Many are overwhelmed. But we promise we have your back, and we're going to get through this. You know, tens of thousands of LA residents, our friends and families, need our help. Need our help to better rebuild the homes that they love, rebuild the businesses that their family has owned at times for generations. They need our help right now to be able to rebuild their lives. But what we don't need, partisanship and political BS. And that's why we have moved with urgency today. We put aside our political differences in the chambers, and we are laser focused, no matter if you're Republican or Democrat, laser focused on delivering the financial resources, the boots on the ground, the policy relief needed to be able to get neighborhoods cleaned up and communities rebuilt. We fast-tracked this $2.5 billion that was approved, and it should be considered a down payment, which will help kickstart the community cleanup and get neighborhoods rebuilt. No red tape, no politics, no delays. But I can't stress this enough. I have been meeting with the Speaker and the Governor over the past several weeks. We will most likely be back in front of the legislature in the weeks to come on additional supplemental relief. And these dollars, we firmly believe, are going to be reimbursed by the federal government. But speaking of the federal government, I think it's critical to note this. These wildfires that we've seen do not discriminate, no matter what your income level may be or your party affiliation is. Here's the truth. No matter if you lose your home to a hurricane in Florida, you lose your business to a flood in Louisiana, you lose your ranch to a brush fire in Texas, we're all Americans first. And as Americans, we go through tough times as a country. And there are moments in our lives where the challenge is bigger than one community, one county, and one state. And California is going through a tough time. But here's what I know. The cleanup and rebuild may be tough in the months to come. There's so much loss. But survivors are strong. People are resilient. Folks can endure a lot. They just need to know from all of us that California and all of America are standing with them. And this $2.5 billion is a clear commitment that we've got your back, LA. We've got your back now. We've got your back in the months and years to come. Your rebuild, your comeback is California's top priority. It is now my distinct honor to be able to introduce the great governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, from day one. He has been here for LA. He is delivering for LA. He's determined to rebuild LA. No expense has been spared. No need has gone unmet. Time and time again, our governor has shown what leadership looks like in the face of unrelenting disasters. For the past 6 years, he has been active, engaged, and delivered in every corner of the Golden State. We are grateful for you, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, guys. I haven't had a chance to turn around and express my gratitude to each and every one of you, particularly the men and women in uniform that have been working tirelessly, including just got back from the Hughes fire, incident command up there with our U.S. Forest Service and L.A., city and county firefighters, CAL FIRE. The job they did last night, 4,000 personnel putting out that fire, saving the community. Had we not had the resources all assembled in this region, the success of last night and this morning would not have materialized. And it's just a reminder of the moment we're in, the moments that we are confronted with today, tomorrow, as we work through what we hope is the last of the red flag warnings, the PDSs, and we hope to enjoy a little bit of respite this weekend with a new challenge, and that is a little bit of rain and the issues that will transpire as a consequence of that. But I'm here with the spirit that I think defines the comments of all of the speakers. Pastor, I appreciate you saying we're all moving together, we're all working together. In the spirit of what the pro tem said, I will add this: we're all in this together. I'm mindful, just a few days ago, we celebrated Martin Luther King Day, who reminded us that we're all bound together by a web of mutuality. And I think that's the spirit that defines this moment and the urgency that brought the Assembly and the Senate together and brought members not only of both houses together, but both parties together. I want to thank Tom Lackey for being here, in particular. Took the time to come down as an expression of bipartisan support, not just supporting this bill. I want to thank the Speaker and the Pro Tem for their fierce sense of urgency to move this forward, to the budget chairs that are here. I want to thank them. I want to thank everybody that cleared the deck, didn't play politics with this, that recognized that people are in need. And as the pastor reminded me and others the other day when we had a faith meeting, people feel helpless, but not everybody feels hopeless. And I think this is about distilling a sense of hopefulness. The pro tem didn't tell you, a little bit, I'll fill in a little bit more about the history of his district and the Tubbs fire and the impact time. We thought 2017, we'd never see a fire like that again until 2018. And 85 people lost their lives in the Camp Fire, 18,000 structures. It's remarkable. I was reminded by the pro tem and others, 80+% of Coffee Park and community impacted by the Tubbs fires are back. Kids are back in school. Just 2 weeks ago, one of the largest insurers in California announced they were reinsuring homes in Paradise, California, because the community is moving back in. So I say that, again, to distill a sense of hopefulness about the moment we're in and the stress and anxiety so many people are feeling. And so that's the why. That's why we're here. This money will be made available immediately, $2.5 billion, as was said by the Speaker, for ongoing operations and disaster recovery, debris removal, work on logistics and traffic management, address all the myriad of issues that we're facing in real time. But we want to get these dollars out in real time, so there's no anxiety and stress associated with that. We'll be talking a lot more in the upcoming days about next-level philanthropic efforts. We'll continue to do more to raise the bar of expectation and excellence as it relates to the work that FEMA and the SBA are doing, the work that our state and local partners are doing at the DRCs, and continue to be mindful in closing that we need to fill the gaps, but also the gaps of understanding. Altadena is a very different community than the Palisades. Altadena is a special community in every way. Every community is special, but few communities like Altadena. Pastor talked about generational realities, generational wealth, memories, moments, heirlooms passed on for generations, and a community that just wants to know we have their back, not just today, but that we're going to be back when all of you are gone, the cameras are gone, and over the course of the next months and years, and make sure they come back, that this community is not displaced, that people don't come in and take advantage of a crisis. And so I want to just express a deep understanding and appreciation, a recognition of that, and a deep recognition of our responsibility to provide for this community in a unique and culturally competent way. With that, I'm honored, thank you, to sign these two bills appropriating $2.5 billion effective immediately to the communities impacted by these wildfires. Thank you all very much for all your hard work. Thank you all for being here, and we'll just jump in. I imagine you have some questions.
Governor, can you explain your relationship specifically for the people of California?
It makes sure that there's no disruption in service and support coming from the state to city, county officials, and direct contractors. $2.5 billion of flexible money in the broad rubric and space of emergency management, continuing to prepare and pre-position, address the immediate needs as it relates to disaster removal and debris, traffic management, and the like. Allows us some time to assess where the gaps may be. We'll take subsequent actions in the legislature. There'll be early action in addition to what was already set forth in the budget that was submitted January 10th.
Governor, has the president said he wants to meet with you tomorrow?
We haven't had any contact with the White House as of this moment.
Can you explain a little bit about your relationship, because you cooperated very well as first
Yeah.
Amendment fires. What happened here?
You have to ask him. We invited him out here. I'm glad he's coming out here. I'm grateful that the president is taking the time. I hope he does take the time to listen to the folks impacted directly by these wildfires. I hope he has a chance to visit the folks in Altadena, not just in the Palisades. And I hope he comes with a spirit of cooperation and collaboration. That's the spirit to which we welcome him. I've said this many times: open hand, not a closed fist. And I will reflect on the frame of your question. We had a great relationship during COVID, well established, well defined. I don't think there was a Democratic governor in the country that worked more collaboratively with the President of the United States. That's my mindset when it comes to emergencies and disasters. No politics, no finger pointing. We're going to have the backs of the people in this state, and I hope the president comes back after his visit tomorrow and is here for not just the short run but the long haul.
Your critics in the legislature said that it was poor form on your part to establish a special session of the legislature before he even took office to Trump-proof the state, that sent a bad message.
Well, the Trump-proof is someone else's words, not ours. I think it was rather prescient. We're already engaged in lawsuits, in litigation. He already is assaulted the 14th Amendment as a birthright citizenship. I think there's a likelihood of additional lawsuits as it relates to some of his executive actions, and we didn't have time to wait past his prologue. Not just my administration, which was just 2 years working with the Trump administration. The Brown administration had 2 years working with the Trump administration. Total, there was 122 lawsuits. We didn't initiate those lawsuits. They were in response to actions by the Trump administration. I thought it was important that we prepare for that, and I think by definition that preparedness has put us in a position where we can quickly move with the Department of Justice to assert ourselves against the backdrop of an assault on a lot of hard-earned progress here that goes back to Ronald Reagan, goes back to the 60s and 70s and 80s. So you could do both things at the same time. Nothing personal. It's just reality and being prepared and having that experience.
How is it not, Governor, how is it not personal? You've just described him as an assault, putting an assault on the 14th Amendment. We know that yesterday in an interview, President Trump said that you are responsible for not bringing water down from Northern California to Southern California. Is it possible to isolate this, to isolate the fires, and to have a relationship and a dynamic with the president to help resolve this? And are you worried about the federal government not reimbursing the $2.5 billion?
Well, it's not. You have to ask him that question. Not personal for me, any of those things. It's just fundamental policy disagreements on birthright citizenship. But on emergency preparedness, emergency management, there should be no daylight between federal administration and state and local representatives, and that's the spirit that defines today in the $2.5 billion, bipartisan. You had not just Tom Lackey, you had a number of other Republican representatives here, and we're grateful for them. We were there, their colleagues were there for other more conservative colleagues in more conservative parts of the state, up in Paradise and Campfire, and never even thought about it, never thought twice about that. So none of this is personal in any way, shape, or form. But it's some people want to politicize things. That's just not our approach. And as it relates to reimbursements, I have all the expectation and belief that we'll be reimbursed for these dollars, and that we'll have the support of Congress and the President of the United States. I absolutely believe that.
What about some of the concerns about the president saying that there should be limits on the funding for California unless the state does some sort of water?
Well, it's the some sort of that is confusing to not just you, but to every expert and everyone that's tried to review it. The State Water Project has nothing to do with the fires here. Nothing. Period. Full stop. It's not he said, she said. This is not just an assertion. It's a foundational fact. And I think it's really important in terms of how we express the reporting here that we deal not just with both sidesism. The State Water Project has nothing to do with water supply as it relates to water suppression for municipal systems. The state reservoirs are at or near record highs, and the issues around the Endangered Species Act have been issues that have been litigated and adjudicated and politicized for as long as I've been alive. They're not novel to this administration. They go back to the George H.W. Bush administration and litigation and lawsuits. So, again, that's why I take none of this personally. I just, with respect, think it's incredibly important that people know the truth, because it's very damaging when people believe such misinformation. And I don't mean it in a malign sense. Maybe the president just doesn't know that there's not a spigot that can be turned to solve all the water problems that he alleges exist that don't exist as it relates to the state water system here in Southern California.
So we're less than 24 hours away from his visit. You're saying you haven't had any contact with the White House at all?
Well, I haven't. I'm grateful, though, that he took our invitation to heart and that he will be here tomorrow. It's my understanding. I look forward to being there on the tarmac to thank the president, welcome him, and we're making sure that all the resources he needs for a successful briefing are provided to him. There's no limit to the resources we'll provide for that briefing, and as I say, I'm grateful that he appears to be coming out.
Plan on talking to him tomorrow?
Well, I certainly plan on being there at the tarmac and look forward to continuing to work not just with him, the administration, as it relates to the disaster recovery, as it relates to our efforts to collaborate with multiple federal agencies over the course of the next many years as we organize our approach to immediately address the debris removal. We're working now with the Army Corps of Engineers. So there's a direct relationship to debris removal in the Trump administration, and to make sure that's done effectively, not just quickly, but effectively, and making sure it's done safely, and to make sure that we move heaven and earth as it relates to waiving permits and making sure we break down every barrier for recovery so people can move quickly to reestablish their lives.
Governor, as you've been seeing everything that's happened over the last few weeks, obviously LA is hosting all of these huge events coming up, the Super Bowl, World Cup, then the Olympics. Do you have confidence in the city's leadership that they will be able to pull off those huge events and prepare for them as they are dealing with all of this other fire recovery?
I do. We're unified. The county, chair of the Board of Supervisors, the mayor and mayor's office, but it's not just LA City. We're dealing with cities of Altadena, Pasadena, many incorporated and unincorporated cities. We're in a regional mindset as it relates to those games, statewide mindset as it relates to the World Cup and the Olympics as well. So I have all the confidence, and I think that's a galvanizing force. In many ways, it will only reinforce that sense of urgency and the imperative of working to one goal, one cause, and be even more unified. And that unification is not just from the paradigm of people in elected positions. It's also philanthropy. It's also some of our business leaders. And so we'll, as I said, a little preview. We'll be talking a lot more about that early next week. We have some big ideas in that space around LA Rising, around a much more aggressive philanthropic force and having verticals to support a recovery and support a rebuilding that's scientifically backed, that's climate considered, and that also considers the larger infrastructure needs of the Olympics and the World Cup. And I should note, we're grateful to the President of the United States for his support of the Olympics. And we're grateful for his comments recently that he made after Casey Wasserman met with him, that he wants to make this the most spectacular Olympics that have ever been held. And so there's no daylight with the administration on that. And I think in so many ways, it only reinforces my confidence that the President and Congress will be there for the American people that happen to live here in Southern California.
Clarification on the funding. Have you gotten any indication from the President's team that they are thinking about dialing back the 100% commitment that President Biden made, and perhaps only providing the minimum of 75%?
I haven't heard it. Look, I sincerely expect them to do the right thing, and that's the right thing to do.
Without Governor, without federal money, what happens to California?
Let me just expand on what I just said. I have all the expectations they're going to do the right thing. That's what we do in this country. And there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of positioning. You guys are pros. You've been around. You've seen this. You saw it down here in Southern California, and before I was even elected governor in Orange County as it relates to reimbursements. I mean, you saw it at the Paradise Fire before I was even sworn in as governor. We're going to get this done. I expect Congress to do the right thing. I appreciate there's been a lot of Republican congressional representatives in California saying the right thing. You saw their representatives in the legislature do the right thing. That's the spirit that defines our time. So I'm not concerned about it. And it's why it's difficult for me to answer that kind of hypothetical. Forgive me. One second, just forgive me.
You spoke about the Paradise Fire and other fires. There's been many fires up and down the state during your tenure in the office. Ounce of prevention, how to cure, and all of that.
Right.
We're talking about rebuilding.
Right.
So many Californians up and down the state are on edge now.
That's right.
Watching these images.
Yeah.
The fires are getting larger, seemingly.
Right.
The press conferences are getting bigger. The aid is getting bigger. What are we doing for prevention?
Well, we've done unprecedented work, and we'll have to do more. We've treated over 700,000 acres just in 2023. We've doubled the number of prescribed burns. I haven't increased modestly the budget for vegetation and forest management. I've 10x'd it. I took a $200 million a year baseline budget, and we've invested over $2.5 billion. I put $1.5 billion in the January 10th budget. We have provided unprecedented investments in forest management on federal forests. 57% of the land in California is federally managed, 3%, just 3% state. But we don't discriminate in terms of that support, just like we didn't as it relates to our approach and suppression on the fire, the Hughes fire yesterday, which is a federal forest fire. We have unprecedented investments in technology, procurement strategies, satellite technology, AI, LIDAR, 3D modeling, intelligence, weather, the ability to do things no other jurisdiction in the country can do, including the investments of 16 new helicopters and those Firehawks that were up there last night doing the suppression, and those Firehawks that likely saved large parts of Los Angeles. Those were all new investments. The pre-positioning that we did before the fires, the 120 engines, the 105 specialty teams, the dozers, the water tankers, were because of investments that 5 years ago we didn't have. We were unable to do that pre-positioning at the scale we're doing it because we made investments. We've doubled the budget at CAL FIRE. We're adding 2,000 more additional firefighters. This is a response to your question, not the kind of soundbite that works for you, but it's important for me to express these unprecedented investments, and I'll encourage you one additional thing. We laid out in a task force, a forest resilience task force, a detailed plan, 99 specific action items, and we have a dashboard that lays out the thousands of vegetation and forest management projects this state is doing. We established a shared stewardship council, a partnership with the federal government to provide support for aiding 500,000 of additional acres of federal forest vegetation management. We ironically did that during the Trump administration. By the way, I'm halfway to fully answering your question. The reason I say all this is to reinforce the point. The first action I took as governor of the state of California was an executive order to change procurement on vegetation and forest management. I followed it up 6 weeks later in Placer County and identified through a state of emergency, a declaration of emergency in Placer County, right near Auburn, California, to move 35 large-scale, high-profile projects to address the vulnerability of 200 communities. We've been at this for years and years and years, but I'll remind you of something that I know is inconvenient. We had the 3 driest years since statehood in 2020, 2021, 2022, followed by the wettest 3 weeks in our history that broke that drought. The extremes are unprecedented. There hasn't been a drop of rain of any significance, at least in 9 months here. It was 78 degrees down here. You had hurricane force winds, 99 miles an hour that these folks were fighting. These are unprecedented conditions, and these conditions are not unique to California, to your question. They persist around the globe and across the United States. And so we have to have a state of mind to be even more vigilant, more prepared, and more honest with ourselves about what's really happening. And that's why I'm not walking away from these commitments. And to the extent the President of the United States wants to come in tomorrow to support even more investments, we look forward to that. I embrace it. I thank him for any additional support he can provide with these record-breaking, unprecedented investments that the state has been making for 6 years straight.
Governor, President Trump has called you a failure and says that your policies are causing these fires. What's your bottom line message to him if you get a chance to talk?
Well, I'd replay the last statement. Sincerely, I don't think I could answer it more comprehensively than I did just a moment ago. The rest is politics.
For clarity, when is the last time you talked to Donald Trump, either telephonically or in?
Well, I reached out to him right before he left the White House, December, before January 6th, and it was the first time I didn't get an immediate return phone call. I'd probably talked to him on a consistent basis every week or 2 weeks throughout most of his presidency, at least in my tenure. That was the last time. That was the last time, yeah. And I reached out to him after his election and before this incident. And so I continued to try to reach out. And I think you know this well. I have a lot of relationships in the Trump world, a lot of relationships of trust. I communicate with a lot of folks around him, folks that have his ear and influence. I don't want. This is a sideshow, a lot of this stuff, but I know it's the show that will probably be the focus of a little bit too much tomorrow. When all I care about is what we can do together to move past this moment and start rowing in the same direction to get this region back on its feet.
Any of your contacts in Silicon Valley who were at the inauguration, have any one of them reached out to you?
I talk to all of them all the time.
Have they given you any indication as to your standing with the president?
This is not about me. This is about the people of the state of California. It has nothing to do with me. We've had issues on emergency response and emergency support from President Trump in 6 states, not California. This predates my tenure as governor. You can look back to his specific quotes about Jerry Brown. You can look back to the specific comments he made about not providing disaster aid under the Brown administration. You can, I don't have to remind you of Puerto Rico or other states, including Georgia, Utah, where this was the same. So I just hope we can sort of expand a consciousness and create a context for this. This is situational. Don't color it in any more than it needs to be. I'm here for the long haul to support the president where we can, to defend our values where we must, to have the backs of diverse communities. At the same time, we work together on critical issues. And let me extend that to one final point. I've been working my tail off to get the largest conveyance project done in California's history, the Delta Conveyance Project. I would love to have the partnership of President Donald Trump. I sat there and I created new environmental waivers and judicial review to get the Sites Dam built in Northern California, the first above-ground dam done. We've been working our tail off. I'd love to have his support. We've invested $8 billion, look this up, $8 billion in infrastructure investments to harden our conveyance system to support water delivery throughout the state of California. We had not done that in decades. That's this administration. I want to continue to do more. So I'm very grateful, in one sense, that the president's so focused on water conveyance in Northern California. I just think he's got something wrong. I don't think it, I know it, as it relates to the state water project having some direct impact here, or somehow that there's been 15 years, as the vice president says, of dams that have been empty when they're at record highs. And so I'd love to have that conversation tomorrow. I don't imagine that's likely. You know how these things go. But I think it could be helpful if we provide that context and that information. And I look forward to working with the president on investments beyond just wildfire recovery. Thank you, guys.
Donald Trump's endorsement on Delta would help you with the legislature?